In the 4th year of our marriage, Marcel and I both had affairs. He took care of a young college girl, treating her like a treasure. I also secretly kept a pure-hearted male college student behind his back, reliving the passion of my youth. I thought he had long grown tired of this marriage filled with daily squabbles. But unexpectedly, on the day he discovered my betrayal, he went crazy, insisting that we should return to our family life together. Chapter 1. Marcel slept in the study again tonight. When I went in to bring him coffee, I happened to catch him handling some documents while talking on the phone with the young girl he kept outside. His phone, placed beside his computer, was on speaker mode. The girl's voice was coquettish, with a hint of possessiveness. "Why didn't you answer my video call? Are you with that old woman? Afraid I'll see you together?" Marcel coaxed her gently. "What are you talking about? I'm reviewing contracts. I'll video call you as soon as I'm done. Be good." The girl persisted. "Marcel, don't forget your promise that you'll never touch her again. Got it? You little jealous thing. I've been sleeping in the study lately, you know that." Hearing his softened tone, I was momentarily dazed. Once, when I used to throw little tantrums, he would lower himself just like this to soothe me. After all this time, he's still the same Marcel who, once in love, would pamper the other person without any limits. Except now, the one being pampered is someone else, a young girl, as young as I once was. Chapter 2. Marcel's smile froze on his face the moment he saw me. Perhaps fearing I would say something harsh to his little girl, he quickly ended the call and scolded me with a frown. "Why didn't you knock before coming in?" I slammed the cup onto the table with a sharp bang. "Here's your coffee. Housekeeperly has a stomachache, so I had to bring it in for her. Also, I did knock, but you were too engrossed in your love talk to hear it." Marcel tugged at his shirt collar, leaning back against the chair as his body relaxed. "Sorry. My fault. Bianca's been a bit fussy these past few days. I was just trying to handle her." At the mention of Bianca, he couldn't help but smile, and even his voice lightened considerably. Chapter 3. Since I discovered Marcel's affair, he hasn't bothered to hide his affection for Bianca. I cried. I threw tantrums. I even threatened to commit suicide to make him break off contact with her. But all he did was coldly watch me as I lashed out, scolding me for acting like a madwoman. Looking back now, I truly did seem like a madwoman. It took me a long time to pull myself out of the emotional wreckage. Maybe it wasn't as extreme as tearing muscle from bone, but it certainly left me battered and bruised. After calming down, I did consider divorce, but that thought was quickly swallowed by my unwillingness to give in. Yes, unwillingness. I stood by Marcel from when we had nothing to where we are now. With all his success and fame, how could I just hand everything over to them so easily? Besides, I knew Marcel had a major project in the works, and once completed, his assets would at least double. If there's going to be a divorce, it should only happen after the project is done. I no longer care about him as a person, but there's no reason to let the money slip away because of a dirty cucumber. I don't claim to be a saint. When I loved him, I gave my all. But since he betrayed me, I must find a way to maximize my own benefit. Treating Marcel as a tool for making money makes this marriage much more bearable. Chapter 4. A close friend once warned me, never pity a man. Never save money for a man, because the money you save will eventually be spent by another woman. At the time, I laughed at her for overthinking, but now, I realize how wise her words were. The once frugal, penny-pinching me began to spend extravagantly. If Marcel can use our marital assets to support a young college girl, why can't I? So, with the money Marcel earned, I also justified keeping a handsome young college boy for myself. I must admit, having a good-looking, well-built boy calling me sister in a sweet, clingy way is quite enjoyable. Thinking of this, I lost interest in watching Marcel perform his act of devotion to Bianca. Lately, it's not just his little girl causing a fuss, my boy is getting quite jealous too. Chapter 5. Back in the bedroom, I locked the door and video called Bruno. Soon, a strikingly handsome face appeared on the screen. He was wearing white earbuds. He must have just showered because his hair was still damp. His tan skin and well-defined muscles made him look like a seductive male siren. I swallowed hard. Pull the camera down. Let me see those abs. Bruno shyly lowered his head, his ear slightly turned towards the camera, blushing faintly. So innocent. But obediently, he moved the phone back a bit. There are people in the dorm, he whispered. Even his voice sent shivers down my spine. I chuckled like a complete pervert. Doesn't that make it more exciting? Bruno's ears turned even redder, the blush spreading down to his neck. Afraid I might say something even more provocative, he quickly changed the subject. Sister, there's a junior who's been pursuing me these past few days. She looks a bit like you. Chapter 6. With Bruno's looks, it's no surprise that many would chase after him, but this was the first time he mentioned it to me. Bianca's words about being an old woman echoed in my mind, making me inexplicably irritable. 6 years older, maybe I really am a bit old for Bruno. So, do you like her too? If so, I'll let you go. He didn't expect me to say that, and he clearly panicked. That's not what I meant. He waved his hand, explaining, my roommates told me I should let you know how in demand I am, so you'd feel a sense of urgency. I don't want freedom. I just want you to care about me a little more. Sister, I only like you. His words were so earnest and anxious, as if he genuinely feared I'd leave him. I sighed. It started as something casual, but the worst thing is when someone gets emotionally involved. Bruno, I like you too, but there's too much between us. It won't lead to anything. You should find someone your own age and have a normal relationship. Maybe we should end this. As soon as I finished speaking, there was a sudden, urgent knock on the door. Through the door, Marcel's voice sounded agitated. Margarita, who are you talking to? Chapter 7. I quickly ended the video call. Marcel's project was in its final stages, and after enduring for more than half a year, I didn't want any complications at the last moment. I opened the door and looked up at him. So, have you calmed down your mistress? Does she know you're banging on my door in the middle of the night? Marcel's face was dark, his brows furrowed. He lowered his voice and asked again, who was it? I rolled my eyes, unable to resist snapping back. None of your damn business. Margarita, are you fucking around with someone else? Seeing his hands clenched so tightly that his knuckles were white, I found it rather amusing. He had flaunted his affair so blatantly, as if the whole world should know he'd cuckolded me, and now he couldn't handle the slightest suspicion? In what capacity are you asking me this? I crossed my arms and leaned against the doorframe. As my cheating husband, or as Bianca's boyfriend? Only someone filthy sees filth in everything. Marcel glared at me, his eyes filled with a murderous intent, as if he wanted to tear me apart piece by piece. He extended his hand toward me. Give me your phone. I couldn't be bothered with him, so I stepped back into the room and slammed the door in his face. Chapter 8. Marcel went crazy, pounding on the door relentlessly. Annoyed, I sent a message to Bianca. Your man is knocking on my door. Maybe he wants a night of passion with me. Should I open the door for him? A few minutes later, it finally went quiet. I exhaled deeply, tossed my phone aside, and collapsed onto the bed, staring blankly at the ceiling. The sound of WeChat notifications kept going off. I didn't know if it was Bruno, Bianca, or both of them bombarding me with messages. Whoever it was, I didn't want to look right now. I was just so tired. Chapter 9. The next morning, when I woke up, Marcel had already left for the office. Housekeeper brought up breakfast, hesitated for a moment, and asked, Madam, did you and the master have a fight? He seemed to be in a bad mood today. Housekeeper is great in many ways, but she's a bit old-fashioned. I've told her countless times to just call us by our names, but she insists on using formal titles, saying it's important to maintain proper etiquette. Eventually, I gave up and let her have her way. I picked up an egg, tapped it twice on the table, and shrugged indifferently. It's probably that girl outside causing him trouble. Bianca has been getting increasingly arrogant lately, thanks to Marcel's indulgence. So last night must have been rough for him. Housekeeper Lee's expression changed several times. Madam, you can't just let the master continue like this. You've been married for so many years. It's time you had a child. Maybe if you had a child, the master would come back to you. Trying to bind a man who's already changed his heart with a child, how desperate does one have to be to resort to that? I shook my head. That wouldn't be fair to the child. Besides, I don't want to win him back. The moment I had to threaten him with my life and it still didn't change his mind. I decided I didn't want this man anymore. Chapter 10. When the company was up and running smoothly, I stepped down from my position as general manager and started my own studio. I pursued my passion for jewelry design, and in the past couple of years, I've achieved some modest success. Just as I parked my car in the studio's underground garage, Bruno appeared out of nowhere. His eyes were red, and his upper eyelids were still swollen. "Sister," he called out to me, his voice sounding much hoarser. His eyes looked at me so pitifully, like a little puppy that had been abandoned. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "You didn't reply to my messages, and I didn't dare to call you, so I came here to wait for you." He took a few cautious steps forward and gently tugged at my sleeve. "Please don't leave me. If I did something wrong, you can tell me. I'll change. I promise." Chapter 11. I started feeling irritated again, a mix of frustration and an undeniable sense of heartache. "Bruno, you need to understand. Our relationship is twisted. If we part ways, we can't even call it a breakup. It's just an end. Do you get that?" The color drained slowly from Bruno's face. He lowered his head, refusing to speak, but his hand stubbornly clung to my sleeve. He held on so tightly, so desperately. I took a deep breath and, in the end, my heart softened. "Bruno, find someone your age and love her fully. Go have a healthy relationship, one that can be out in the open, in the sunlight." Bruno sniffled and refused my suggestion without hesitation. "I only want you." We stayed like that, arguing back and forth in the underground garage for a long time. But in the end, I couldn't bring myself to reject him completely. Well, he's still young. Given time, he'll eventually grow tired of me. Just like Marcel, who once loved me so much he would have jumped into a river for me. But now he's moved on to someone else. Chapter 12. After spending the whole morning drawing, I stretched and decided to take a break. As soon as I turned on my phone, I saw that Bianca had sent me another bunch of messages. This mistress was getting bolder by the day. When she first added me as a friend, she didn't even dare say who she was, only subtly showing off her relationship in her social media posts. Now she was bold enough to challenge me directly. She sent 2 photos. In one, she was smiling radiantly, wearing an expensive necklace. In the other, there was another necklace, beautiful in design, but clearly inferior to the first. But I recognized it instantly. It was the one I loved a few years ago but couldn't afford to buy. That year, Marcel and I were preparing for our wedding, and he took me to choose jewelry. I immediately fell in love with that necklace. But at that time, our business had just started, and we couldn't afford such a luxury. He held my hand, his eyes red from holding back tears. He said, "Honey, I'm sorry to make you feel wronged. I will earn a lot of money in the future, and then I'll buy you all the jewelry in the mall." Later, he did earn a lot of money, enough to buy dozens, even hundreds of malls, but he forgot the promise he made to me, to buy me that jewelry. Chapter 13. Below the photos were a few lines of text. "Marcel bought me 2 necklaces to make me happy, but I didn't really like the second one. I wanted to pass it on to you, but I was worried you might not like it either. Then Marcel mentioned that you had your eye on this one a few years ago, so I'll have him bring it back to you tonight. I hope you don't mind." Her pretentious, competitive tone made me sick to my stomach. I didn't let it slide. "My mother only gave birth to me, so don't start with that ancient concubine nonsense. It's degrading. From now on, just call me Mrs. Liu." Maybe the words Mrs. Liu hurt her fragile ego. She didn't reply, but it wasn't long before Marcel called. "What did you say to her this time? Can you please stop causing trouble and leave her alone? I've prepared a gift for you." I swore at him. "Fuck off. Get lost." Then I hung up without hesitation. I think I might have developed a fear of stupidity. I can't stand idiots. Chapter 14. I sat in my chair, stewing in my anger, getting more and more disgusted as I thought about it. I picked up my phone again and sent Marcel a screenshot of my conversation with Bianca. even though I had already made up my mind to divorce him once the project was over. I wanted him to see exactly what kind of person he was so infatuated with. He came to scold me, said I was the one provoking her. If I'm uncomfortable, then no one else is going to be happy either. Open your damn eyes and see clearly. Who provoked whom first? Are you seriously going to tell me the gift you prepared for me is the necklace your mistress didn't like? Don't you dare disgust me. I don't need it. Without waiting for his reply, I quickly blocked him on all platforms. Instead of draining myself with inner turmoil, I'd rather vent my anger outward. It felt fucking great. Chapter 15. Marcel called me several more times from different numbers, and I added each one to the blacklist. In the evening, it started raining lightly. When I got home, Marcel was sitting upright on the sofa. His white collar had a conspicuous, smudged lipstick mark. On the table in front of him was a beautifully wrapped gift box. Seeing me come in, he stood up and handed the box to me. Let me explain. I bought this especially for you. I didn't know Bianca would sneak and wear it. I also didn't know she'd say those things to you. I took the box and immediately tossed it into the nearby trash bin. Anything she's touched, I find dirty. That includes you. Marcel's expression darkened. He gritted his teeth and glared at me. Margarita, don't go too far. Too far? Do you need me to remind you of all the things you've done? He paused, his angry gaze shifting away from me. His hands clenched, then slowly relaxed. He didn't argue back. There was nothing he could say. Chapter 16. I didn't feel like arguing with him any further, so I walked past him and went straight to the bedroom, to avoid Marcel overhearing. I didn't video call Bruno after my shower. Instead, we chatted via text. Just as the conversation was getting lively, there was another knock on the door. Marcel stood at the door, soaking wet. Awkwardly, he handed me another gift box. I just went and bought a new one. This one hasn't been touched by her, so it's not dirty. He licked his lips nervously and continued. I remember you really liked it before, but back then, I couldn't afford it. I cut him off. Oh, sorry. I don't like it anymore. Marcel frowned, looking confused. Why? I let out a derisive laugh. If feelings for a person can change, why not for a piece of jewelry that's long outdated? Stop bothering me. I slammed the door in his face once again. Chapter 17. Because he got caught in the rain, Marcel came down with a fever. When he's sick, he's always particularly needy. Housekeeper Lee tried making him all sorts of nutritious meals, but he refused to eat any of them, only insisting on having the century egg and pork congee I used to make. Back when we first started the business, Marcel often got sick, probably due to stress and being overworked. Every time he fell ill, I would make him century egg and pork congee. After finishing the congee, he would rest his head on my shoulder, hugging me and whining, "Honey, you're the best. You're the best wife in the whole world." We didn't have much money back then, living in a tiny rental apartment, but we were so happy every day. But later, somehow, things changed. Is it true that when men have money, they really change for the worse? Housekeeper Lee looked at me with a troubled expression. Madam, why don't you make the congee for him? If he doesn't eat anything, it'll take a toll on his health. I nodded. After all, if he stays sick, the project will be delayed, won't it? I opened Bianca's chat window again. Your man is sick. Come take care of him. Chapter 18. When Bianca showed up at the house, Marcel's already pale and feverish face turned even more unpleasant. He coughed, his expression dark, and asked, "What are you doing here at our house?" Bianca was stunned, clearly not expecting him to say that. She bit back her rising temper with visible effort. Lowering her head, she put on a pitiful look. "I heard you were sick, so I came to take care of you." Marcel glanced at me, seeing my amused expression, and suddenly grew impatient. He brusquely started to dismiss her. "There's no need. Go home." Bianca, who had been doted on and treated like a princess by him, couldn't handle his current attitude. She turned and ran out, crying, but she ran slowly, clearly hoping Marcel would chase after her and comfort her. However, Marcel stood rigidly in place, not moving an inch. I clicked my tongue softly. mocking him in my mind. Just a few days ago, they were all lovey-dovey, sickeningly sweet, and now he's already tired of her? You little jealous thing. Gross. Disgusting. Chapter 19. Bianca, feeling wronged by Marcel, decided to take out her anger on me. What did you say to Marcel? He's never treated me like this before. I thought for a moment. Maybe it's because I sent him a screenshot of our chat. Oh, and he also said that the necklace was something he specifically bought for me, and you just took it for yourself. I guess that's all I did. Bianca must have been furious because she started hurling insults at me. You bitch. Stupid whore. No wonder Marcel doesn't want you. You're getting old. You should find a retirement home to settle down in and stop causing trouble. I calmly took a screenshot and then replied, wow, so vulgar. Aren't you afraid I'll send this to that blind and heartless idiot? As soon as my message was sent, she began frantically deleting her messages one by one. Too late. My dear. I unblocked Marcel just long enough to send the screenshot and then blocked him again. Before blocking him, I didn't forget to curse him out thoroughly. Never let a scumbag couple off the hook. Chapter 20. Before this, I never intended to cause trouble for Bianca, even when I was trying to save our shattered marriage by threatening suicide. I didn't say a single bad word about her. I always believed that flies don't land on eggs without cracks. The real issue in infidelity is the man's lack of loyalty. But the more I held back, the more she thought I was an easy target. She kept provoking me again and again, even outright attacking me a few times. I remember when I slit my wrist and was lying in the hospital. She came to see me. She pressed her hand on my bandaged wrist. Full of fake sympathy, Marcel really is heartless to you. Sister, even seeing you like this doesn't make him feel bad. When I get a little scratch, he fusses over me for ages. She even brought her friends to my studio to mock my work. They laughed loudly, criticizing without restraint. They wondered how terrible someone's taste must be to appreciate the ugly things I designed. If I kept tolerating this, even the Notre Dame de Paris would invite me to ring its bells. Chapter 21. Bianca hadn't bothered me for a long time. I wasn't sure if Marcel had said something to her or if she was afraid of my screenshot tactic. On the other hand, Marcel started appearing around me more often. Not only did he bring me small gifts every few days, but he also frequently cooked dishes that I loved. His unusual behavior only made me feel more irritated. Is he seriously interrupting my time with the boy toy? Marcel placed the last dish on the table and then bent down to remove his apron. Next week is the company's celebration banquet. Come with me. Celebration banquet? Does that mean the project is finally done? I smiled and agreed, silently planning to arrange a meeting with a lawyer to draft the divorce papers soon. He hung up the apron, sat down, and placed a piece of chicken wing in my bowl. If you have time in the next couple of days, help me pick out some outfits. They should match your dress. At first, I wanted to refuse, but then I thought about Bruno's upcoming birthday. I could use this shopping trip to pick out a gift for him. Thinking of Bruno, even this idiot started to seem more tolerable. I smiled again and nodded in agreement. The atmosphere, for once, wasn't tense. Marcel cleared his throat, and a faint blush appeared on his pale face. I'm going to sleep in the bedroom tonight. Don't lock the door. The hand holding my chopsticks shook, and then I slammed them down on the table, my face darkening. Sleep with me? Dream on. Chapter 22. Not expecting such a strong reaction from me, Marcel angrily threw down his chopsticks and stormed out. Maybe my response had severely wounded his male pride because he didn't come home for 2 days. I was perfectly fine with that. I decided to spend the weekend shopping with Bruno. Arm in arm, we walked into the mall, laughing and chatting, when we ran into Marcel, who was helping Bianca pick out clothes. He seemed to be growing impatient, frequently checking his watch. Just as I was about to pull Bruno away, Marcel looked up from his watch and our eyes met. His gaze dropped to my hand, resting in the crook of Bruno's arm, and his handsome features tightened with inexplicable sharpness. He quickly strode over to me and pulled me to his side. Is this Bruno, the guy from that phone call? Marcel asked. His voice was hoarse, almost unrecognizable. I nodded, admitting it. I was already prepared for the end, so there was no need to hide it anymore. I could almost hear the sound of his teeth grinding. You too, how far have you gone? It took him a lot of effort to get the words out. I replied casually. However far you've gone with your mistress. That's how far we've gone. Chapter 23. Marcel's face went from red to white to green. His grip on my arm tightened, growing more painful by the second. Noticing my discomfort, Bruno placed his hand on Marcel's wrist. Mr. Lou, you're hurting her. That statement successfully made Marcel release his grip on me, but the hand he pulled away clenched into a fist, and he swung it hard, landing a punch on Bruno's face. The two men, both over 6 feet tall, started grappling with each other, quickly drawing the attention of people around us, including Bianca, who had just finished changing and was coming out. She screamed and rushed over, trying to pull them apart. When she finally saw Bruno's face, she stumbled back a few steps, the color draining from her face. Senior? Chapter 24. I'm not sure who called the police, but the 4 of us ended up at the police station. Bianca kept sneaking glances at Bruno. Her expression was a mix of confusion and fear. Leaning against Bruno, I whispered, "Do you know her?" Bruno frowned. She's the junior I told you about. The one who's been chasing me. But I turned her down a long time ago. She just wouldn't leave me alone. Like she can't understand plain language. Our whispered conversation caught Marcel's attention. He shot us a cold glare, but I stared right back at him, eyes wide in defiance. Idiot. You deserve to be cheated on. And by different people at that. The police officer taking our statements was quite young, sitting on the bench and looking up at us. Why were you fighting? When no one answered, he asked again, what's the relationship between all of you? I know the answer to this one. I pointed at Marcel, my husband, then at Bruno, my boyfriend. Finally, I pointed at Bianca, my husband's girlfriend, who's also my boyfriend's pursuer. The situation was so absurd that the young officer froze, his mouth hanging open as he stared at us, completely forgetting to take notes. Chapter 25. Both sides agreed to a settlement, and the matter was resolved. As soon as we stepped out of the police station, Marcel grabbed my arm. Come home with me, we need to talk. Bruno quickly grabbed my other arm. I gave him a reassuring smile. It's okay, Bruno, I really do need to talk to him. Reluctantly, Bruno let go. Back at home, Marcel shoved me onto the bed and locked the door. He tore off his tie, unbuttoned the top 2 buttons of his shirt, and leaned over me, kissing me wildly and without any sense of control. I squirmed, trying to avoid his kisses, pushing him away with all my strength. But it was useless. My resistance only seemed to make him more irrational. As he aimed to press his lips against mine, I mustered all my strength and slapped him hard across the face. Chapter 26. Marcel's pale skin quickly reddened and swelled where I'd slapped him. He gripped my wrists and pinned them above my head. His teeth clenched as he demanded, "What? Are you trying to stay faithful to him? Margarita, don't you fucking forget, you're my wife. You remember I'm your wife now?" I sneered. Why didn't you think about that when you were cheating on me? When I was lying alone in the hospital after trying to kill myself, why didn't you remember I was your wife? When you were sweet-talking your little mistress, why didn't you think about me as your wife? With each word, his expression darkened further. The past was painful, but I had survived it, and I didn't want to keep reopening old wounds and rehashing those miserable times. I looked at him calmly and said, "Marcel, let's get a divorce." "No, absolutely not, Margarita. I'm never divorcing you." Marcel panicked. He stood up, opened the door, and stumbled out. Think carefully about what that Bruno can really give you. Chapter 27. In the middle of the night, Marcel was brought back home, drunk, by one of his friends. When he saw me, his bleary eyes suddenly lit up. He pushed away his friend's support and lunged at me, hugging me tightly. He nuzzled his head into the crook of my neck. This was his usual way of acting spoiled. "Honey, why didn't you come pick me up? Let's not get divorced, okay? I won't mess around anymore. Let's just wipe the slate clean, okay? From now on, we'll live a good life. And you can give me a big, chubby daughter. I hope she looks like you." As he spoke, he started to choke up. I'm sorry. Honey, I'm sorry. I don't want to divorce you. I sighed and patted his back gently. It's too late. We can't go back. Yes, it's too late. I gave you chances, Marcel, more than once. Chapter 28. When Marcel came downstairs, rubbing his temples, I was in the middle of discussing the divorce with a lawyer. I waved him over. You're just in time. Come and see if there's anything that needs to be changed. I pushed the drafted agreement toward him. Marcel's brows furrowed deeply, almost twisting into a knot. Without even looking at it, he grabbed the unfinished divorce papers and threw them straight into the trash. I told you. I'm not divorcing you. I gave the lawyer an apologetic smile and then turned my gaze back to Marcel. Then I'll have to take it to court. Marcel's arm swept across the table, sending the teapot and teacups crashing to the floor. Do you really have to go through with this? Are you that eager to live happily ever after with that Bruno? I raised an eyebrow. Don't you want the same? He was stunned for a moment, then impatiently replied, in any case, Mrs. Liu can only ever be you, Margarita. Even in death, you'll be buried next to me. I looked past him, noticing Bianca emerging from the kitchen, holding a tray of fruit. So, you never had any intention of marrying the poor girl? Just planned to keep her as a mistress for life? Marcel grew even more impatient. Can you stop dragging outsiders into our issues? It was a transaction between us from the start. I'm done with her, and you need to be done with your Bruno too. Stop thinking about anything else. Let's focus on our life together. Chapter 29. Bianca's delicate face turned pale. She lost her grip, and the fruit tray clattered to the floor with a sharp crash. Marcel turned toward the noise, a flash of disgust in his eyes. When did you get here? Didn't I tell you not to come to our house anymore? Bianca's slightly parted lips trembled. You blocked me. I had no choice but to come here to find you. Marcel sneered. What? Didn't I give you enough of a breakup settlement to keep chasing after men? Get out! If you don't want me to take back the money and gifts I gave you, then don't ever show your face in front of me again. Bianca clenched her fists, and before leaving, she shot me a venomous glare. I imagine she must hate me deeply now. Perhaps she thinks that if I hadn't exposed her pursuit of Bruno, Marcel wouldn't have abandoned her. Chapter 30. It's as if Marcel is trying to relive the days of our passionate romance. A bouquet of flowers today, a handwritten letter tomorrow. He keeps asking me to reconcile. It's laughable. He's the one who shattered my heart into 1,000 pieces. And now he thinks he has the right to ask me to piece it back together and act like nothing happened. Marcel stubbornly refuses to agree to the divorce, so I have no choice but to go through the legal process. While I'm busy preparing the paperwork, he's busy preparing surprises for me. The celebration banquet finally arrived. Because of the fight between him and Bruno, I never got around to buying the dress for the banquet or the gift for Bruno. I wore the champagne-colored evening gown he had sent over and stood by his side, responding to others' congratulations, some sincere, some not. But all I could think about was what I should buy for Bruno. Chapter 31. The noisy commotion pulled me out of my thoughts. I snapped back to reality to find Marcel kneeling on one knee in front of me, holding an obviously expensive diamond ring. It was a world apart from the simple platinum band on my finger. People around us began to cheer. Kiss! Kiss! I quickly reached out and pulled Marcel up from the ground, smiling to smooth over the situation. We're an old married couple. Aren't you afraid others will laugh at us? My fingers dug into his arm, the fine fabric of his suit wrinkling under my grip. Marcel clearly understood the unspoken message, closing his eyes slightly and forcing the smile from his lips. He looked utterly dejected. He pulled me into his arms, his voice hoarse as he whispered in my ear, "Do you really love him that much? Can't you give us one more chance?" To the onlookers, the scene must have appeared beautiful and romantic, especially after his heartfelt proposal with a diamond ring, but no one knew that a single tear had fallen onto the back of my neck. Chapter 32. At the celebration banquet, I gave Marcel the appearance of dignity. After all, when people are looking for a joke, the object of ridicule is usually more than one person. I didn't want to be the subject of everyone's gossip, and I honestly didn't see the need to make a public spectacle of it. It seemed that Marcel had suddenly remembered all the promises he hadn't kept and was desperately trying to make up for them. A few times. I even passed by the study to find him holding our old photos, secretly crying. Empty wine bottles littered the floor at his feet. Just like he used to ignore me, I now ignored his efforts and emotions. He seemed convinced that my desire for a divorce was solely because of Bruno. I never told him that the thought of divorce had been in my mind for a long time. It was only now that the timing felt right. In just 2 weeks, he had lost a lot of weight. The custom-made suits that once fit him perfectly now hung loosely on his frame. But I no longer felt any pity for him. Chapter 33. For Bruno's birthday, I brought the watch I bought for him. As I was about to leave, Marcel blocked my way. He hung his head, half his face hidden in the shadows, as if he was silently begging me not to go. He seemed to have suddenly remembered that today was also our wedding anniversary. I tilted my head, thinking aloud, I remember. On my birthday, I stood in front of the door, blocking your way, but you still left. You said it was the 100th day anniversary of you and Bianca, and you had to be with her. If I stay today, wouldn't Bruno feel as hurt as I did back then? I'm sorry, he murmured, but if you leave, I'll be hurt too. Marcel, you're the one who hurt me. If I make you feel the same pain now, it's only fair. But Bruno never hurt me, so I can't let him suffer. That's what fairness means. His arm, which had been blocking my way, fell limply to his side. As I walked past him, I heard him choke out behind me. Did you cheat on me just to make things fair? I didn't answer. At first, yes, that was my intention. But, faced with Bruno's warmth, understanding, and kindness, how many women could stay completely clear-headed? Chapter 34. This was my first time meeting Bruno's roommates. A group of young men greeted me kindly, their eyes untainted by the harsh realities of the world. One of them, with darker skin, nudged Bruno with his shoulder, teasing, "Your girlfriend is even prettier in person than in the photos. No wonder you turned down the dance department's campus queen." Bruno nervously pushed him away. "Don't talk nonsense, sis. He's just joking. No one is chasing after me." Last time, when I mentioned ending things because someone was pursuing him, it seemed to have genuinely scared him. I was about to reassure him when my phone rang. It was an unknown number from the city. When I answered, a strong wind was blowing on the other end, making the voice sound fragmented. "Margarita, I'm on the rooftop of Xingshi. I'll wait for you for half an hour. If you don't come, I'll jump." Xingshi is a mall in our city, known for its affordable prices and wide variety of goods. Back when we had no money, Marcel and I used to go there for dates. Before I could say anything, Marcel hung up. I bit my lip, hesitating for a moment, then grabbed Bruno's hand. "Bruno, come with me somewhere." Chapter 35. On the way, I called the police. When we arrived, I didn't let Bruno get out of the car. "Bruno, wait here for me. I'll be back soon." I pressed a gentle kiss on his lips. "When I come back, we'll celebrate your birthday. Marcel and I are still legally married, and if he's found to have been suicidal and I didn't try to stop him, I could be held responsible. That's why I had to come. I can't let him drag me down with him. But today is Bruno's birthday, and I can't just leave him alone. If I take him up there, I worry the police might get involved with him too. It's hard to find a solution that covers everything." Bruno grabbed my hand, his expression serious. "Sis, let me go up with you. I'm afraid he might hurt you." I shook my head, smiling. "He won't. He's just not willing to let go. He wants to cause a scene to make me change my mind." "Don't worry. He won't actually kill himself. And he won't hurt me. He's just trying to use the same tactic I once used, to pressure me." Bruno lowered his eyes, his long lashes casting a shadow on his cheeks. "Then, will you change your mind?" I shook my head firmly. "Marcel and I have reached a crossroads, and from here, the only path is to part ways." Chapter 36. When I reached the rooftop, Marcel was sitting by the railing, smoking a cigarette, holding a can of beer in his other hand. The wind billowed through his empty shirt, making it flap loudly. He turned to me with a smile, raising his hand in a mock toast. "You said it yourself. Fairness." He spoke slowly, his voice rough and grating from too much smoking. Back then, you threatened to die if I didn't break up with Bianca. Now I'm doing the same. It's only fair. So, I die. Or you break up with him, your choice. I raked my hair in frustration, resisting the urge to kick him off the roof. How does he have the nerve to bring this up? Yeah, I did threaten to die. And what did you do? You said I was acting like a madwoman. Marcel, now I'm giving those exact words right back to you. He swayed on the edge, so I softened my tone. Okay, that's enough. I didn't actually die back then, did I? Marcel, right now, you're just like I was, trapped in your own obsession. Come over here. Let's talk seriously. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a flash of orange. The firefighters had arrived. I kept Marcel's attention on me until that orange-clad figure made a leap, tackling him to the ground. Marcel grinned, tears spilling down his cheeks. You knew that if you had just made the choice I wanted, I would have gone back with you quietly. But you wouldn't give in. Not even once. Not even a little lie to comfort me? I shook my head. Lying is wrong. Didn't you make the same choice back then? Not to lie to me? Chapter 37. Seasons passed, and our divorce case dragged on for a year. It turns out, as long as one party refuses, divorce can indeed be a hassle. I moved out of our house and bought a small apartment near my studio. The next day, Marcel bought the apartment next door at an inflated price. I don't know who gave him the idea, but he came over, full of bravado. If we can't go back to the past, then I'll just court you all over again. I think maybe exposing Bianca's true colors brought some bad karma upon me, and my punishment is having a Marcel who won't leave, no matter what I do. It seems he really doesn't understand what it means to give up, or what it means to be unwelcome. Chapter 38. The days grew hotter, and Bruno finally graduated from university. He wore his cap and gown, smiling brightly under the sun. I held the camera, snapping picture after picture of him. He truly was a sight to behold, every shot looking effortlessly stunning. Danger often strikes in an instant. Just as Bruno threw away his bouquet and started running towards me, I felt a force shove me aside. My knees sank into the soft grass. Behind me, screams echoed through the air. Blood, dark and winding, began to spread. The person who had clung to me like a stubborn piece of gum for the past year lay in a pool of blood, a knife embedded in his abdomen. He had secretly followed me after all. Bianca, who had attacked him, was already subdued by Bruno, her arms pinned behind her. I crawled over to Marcel, not daring to touch him for fear of causing further harm. Marcel, hang in there, I stammered, fumbling to pull out my phone, but my hands wouldn't cooperate. They were shaking too much. It's okay, don't cry. Marcel weakly raised his arm, struggling to touch my face. Was I crying? I wiped my face with my hand, finding it wet with tears. Chapter 39. I'm not sure who called 911, but Marcel was quickly loaded into an ambulance. Inside, he held my hand, asking with difficulty, if I survive, will you give me another chance? I didn't answer directly. Marcel, if you die saving me, I'll feel guilty for the rest of my life. Please. You have to live. I'm begging you. He tried to smile. Even now, you still won't lie to me. Stop crying. I still have so much money left to spend. How could I afford to die? Chapter 40. Thankfully, the knife hadn't damaged his spleen, but he'd lost a lot of blood and needed an urgent transfusion. Bruno stayed by my side, waiting outside the emergency room for over 3 hours. After a long hesitation, he finally gathered the courage to ask me, Sis, if Mr. Liu pulls through, will you get back together with him? I shook my head. Gratitude is gratitude, and love is love. They're not the same. If I got back with him just because he saved my life, it wouldn't be fair to either of us. Marcel woke up the next morning. I brought him some congee I had made. He glanced at it, looking a bit displeased. Why isn't it century egg and pork congee? I stirred the plain congee with a spoon, gently scolding him. The doctor said you just had surgery, so you need to start with plain congee. He gave a small nod and fell silent. After a long time, when the congee had already cooled, Just as I was about to feed him, he spoke again. "Bring the divorce papers tomorrow." I nodded and softly replied, "Okay." After all this time, we finally decided to let each other go. Chapter 41. Bianca was arrested for attempted murder. During the interrogation, she requested to see me. I was curious to hear what she had to say as well. After more than a year, she had lost much of her former glamour. She looked haggard and worn. "Margarita, you must be wondering why I wanted to kill you." She glared at me with such venom, as if she wished she could tear me apart. "Because you deserve to die. The two people I loved both left me because of you." Marcel, who on the surface seemed to cherish and pamper me, called out your name more than once while we were together. And my senior, I liked him so much. I was even ready to leave Marcel if he accepted me. But he refused. He said he already had someone he liked and told me to stop bothering him. She banged her handcuffed hands on the table repeatedly, the metal clanking loudly. "Margarita, what's so great about you? Why did they both abandon me for you? Do you know how exhausting it was for me to pretend to be pure and kind in front of Marcel? Even though I knew he might just be using me as a substitute for you, I accepted it. But in the end, because of your meddling, he dumped me too. If he hadn't rejected me, I wouldn't have ended up with Duncan, that beast of a man. He didn't just abuse me, he was sick. He was sick. I don't have much time left. Do you know that? Margarita, it's all your fault." I took off my headset and stood up, silently looking at her through the glass. Her worldview was already twisted beyond repair. There was no point in trying to reason with her. It would be like talking to a brick wall. After leaving the police station, I contacted the most renowned lawyer specializing in criminal cases. I wanted to do what little I could to ensure she'd spend a few extra years behind bars. Chapter 42. Although Marcel survived, he was left with chronic health issues. He would likely spend the rest of his life in pain, especially during the cold months. Following his doctor's advice, he decided to move to a different city. Before he left, he came to see me. He pulled a roasted sweet potato out of his coat and handed it to me. "I've been keeping it warm for you. Eat it while it's hot." Back in college, there was an old man near campus who sold particularly sweet roasted sweet potatoes. Marcel used to buy them, wrap them in plastic bags, and tuck them into his clothes to bring to me. I took it from him, peeled off the skin, and took a bite. It didn't taste the same as it used to. "My flight is tomorrow afternoon. Will you see me off?" he asked cautiously, hope flickering in his eyes. I shook my head. "Safe travels." Still as heartless as ever, he looked over at the boy waiting quietly for me, bundled up in a winter coat not far away. Then he asked one more time, "Do you really like him that much?" I followed his gaze, a smile curling my lips. "Yes, I do." Marcel's side story. Chapter 1. After being with Margarita for so many years, I thought I was tired of her. So when a young girl appeared who bore a slight resemblance to her, yet was pure and innocent, I plunged headlong into this newfound tenderness without hesitation. When Margarita cried, made a scene, and even threatened me by slitting her wrists, all I felt was annoyance, extreme annoyance. Her disheveled, hysterical state made her no different from a shrew on the street in my eyes. The cherished red mark on my heart had ultimately turned into a mere bloodstain on the wall. Later, when she stopped crying, stopped making scenes, and even graciously refrained from questioning me about Bianca, I was satisfied. I didn't realize that the only reason she could be so calm was because she no longer loved me. Chapter 2. Bianca was very much like Margarita in her college days, innocent, carefree, and naive. Even her jealousy and occasional tantrums were similar. I enjoyed Bianca's playful jealousy and the way she would sometimes pout. So when Bianca demanded that I not touch Margarita anymore, I considered it and agreed. I was convinced that I no longer loved Margarita. That night, I intended to apologize to her, thinking I had been too harsh, but instead, I accidentally overheard her discussing a breakup with someone. Rage surged within me. I accused her of cheating, but she countered by questioning my own position. Indeed, I was the one who cheated first. What right did I have to accuse her? Chapter 3. It felt like a thorn, pricking at me from time to time, yet I acted like a coward. Too afraid to confront it head-on, Bianca continued to throw fits over her. And for the first time, I found the jealousy I once enjoyed to be bothersome. To pacify her, I took her to pick out a necklace. While she was trying on different ones, my eyes were drawn to the most inconspicuous one in the corner. A younger image of Margarita appeared in my mind. She looked up at me, her voice soft. Wearing these accessories is such a hassle. Let's just keep it simple and buy a ring. She probably didn't even realize that her eyes would often drift toward the necklace she claimed not to like. I asked the salesperson to wrap it in the most exquisite box. Bianca glanced at it and pouted. I don't like this one. I replied indifferently. It's not for you. She seemed even more displeased after that. But I didn't have the energy to comfort her. I wondered if Margarita would like this gift when she received it. Chapter 4. I never imagined Bianca would do something like this. I began to question whether I truly knew this girl. I also began to question whether I was really over Margarita. When she tossed the necklace into the trash without a second thought, it hurt. So despite the lightning and thunder outside, I ran into the storm without hesitation. I brought back the necklace and gave it to her again. But she still wasn't happy. She said she didn't like it anymore. I couldn't tell if she was referring to the necklace or to me, or maybe both. Chapter 5. I broke up with Bianca after she cursed out Margarita, with swollen eyes. She begged me to forgive her, saying she only did it because she cared too much about me. Her almond-shaped eyes were misty with tears, looking pitiful. Through her, it was as if I saw Margarita at 18. During our dating days, when Margarita would act coy and apologize, she would look at me just like that. I gently wiped away the tears from the corners of her eyes. I transferred $2 million to your account in a few days. I'll take you shopping for a couple of outfits. Let's part on good terms. I never imagined that I would run into Margarita at the mall. Her eyes were shining, like they were filled with stars. How long had it been since I last saw her smile like that? It seemed like a very, very long time. Jealousy clouded my mind. I ended up hitting someone. Chapter 6. At the police station, when she pointed out that Bianca was chasing after that Bruno, I felt nothing inside. But hearing her say my boyfriend was particularly grating, after everything was laid bare, she asked for a divorce. I panicked. Honestly, I never thought there would come a day when we would separate. Not even when I saw her as a shrew during those times. I wanted to win her back. But she didn't give me any chance. Not even when I tried to imitate what she had done before and faked a suicide attempt. As I sat on the rooftop, thinking while the wind blew, I reflected on so much. I thought about how desperate and helpless she must have felt back then. How much she wanted to save our broken marriage that she resorted to such an extreme method. Just like I was doing at that moment. Even when I threatened to die, she didn't give me a chance. Even when my life was truly at risk, she didn't relent. I never knew she could be so stubborn that she wasn't even willing to lie. Even though we both knew the truth, she must have really given up on me. She cried and begged me not to die, but I knew it was out of guilt. Or maybe it was just a tiny bit of affection accumulated over the years. I haven't even seen what your future baby will look like. How could I bear to die? How could I bear to let you carry the guilt of my death for the rest of your life? Margarita, don't cry. When I wake up, I'll set you free.